Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donna. I am the Director of Clinical Integration, and we welcome you to the live event for United Medical ACO. This event occurs every Friday. However, the second Friday of every month, we try to focus on our diabetes wellness program. I am sitting in for Kamal today as the host. And I have with me Caroline Weber, who is one of our dietitians. She is the person who oversees the diabetes program. And we also have Sean Dunnigan with us today as another guest. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Caroline.
Awesome. This is just our wellness program team for reference, our offerings for our diabetes wellness program. And I'll be leading our presentation today on setting the table for the holidays diabetes edition. As we know, or as I've heard recently, there's a lot of stress coming up around the holidays, especially if we're monitoring our blood sugar. So today we're going to walk through some tools and tips to help us build a plate, tackle the holidays, while also managing our blood sugars, and also enjoying our favorite foods. So we'll get started by grabbing our plate. We want to prep our plate for the holiday meal, and that starts even before you touch the spoons and the serving forks and anything like that. The best way to avoid the eyes are bigger than the stomach situation that I deal with every holiday is to start doing an intake of the food available. We want to identify some of your favorite foods that you don't normally get to have, some of those things you look forward to all year round. See what things you might be able to pass on. Just take an inventory so that you feel like you can go tackle the meal with some mindfulness. We want to identify our available protein, carb, and fat and veggies. So all of our food sources, right? We want to make sure that we have all of those identified so that can help us build our plate moving forward. So we also know that holiday plates look different for everyone. House to house, we all celebrate different holidays, and so different foods are available. So our plates can look very, very different with the types of foods that we have. But the good news is all of our food groups are universal. Protein, carb, fat, veggies, fruit, they're all going to be available at a meal. So that's still applicable, even if we don't talk about certain foods that you might have during this holiday season, you can still apply it with the type and food groups that we talk about. We want to work on having a balanced plate for balanced blood sugar. So that's our main goal, is we want to change the ratio on the plate of certain foods to help benefit our blood sugar a little bit better. When we're building our plate, we want to make sure that we have protein, carb, fat, and veggie all included on that plate because each does an important thing that we'll talk about to help balance out your blood sugar. All of these items give us the best shot at stable blood sugars, satisfied bellies after a meal, and it also helps slow down our digestion, which we'll talk about, and the impact that that has on our blood sugar. This is a little example here of like our My Plate model. You might have seen it before, where we split half the plate into our veggie or high fiber items. We have a fourth of the plate carb, a fourth of the plate protein, and we're going to follow that model as we build our own plates today. So our first step is when you see all the food available, right? Identify your vegetable. Gravitate towards that vegetable first. I know it's sometimes hard because the veggie is usually not the main feature of the meal or the most exciting portion of the meal, but that vegetable contains fiber, which is going to be the key superhero player in your meal. It's going to help slow down digestion, balance your blood sugar. It's heart healthy, right? It does a million different things in our body. So we want to try to fill the majority of our plate with vegetables. But it can also be a little daunting to fill half of your plate of a holiday meal with spinach or green beans or whatever you're having. So there's also alternatives of maybe having a vegetable appetizer or having some raw veggies beforehand with some dip, and then maybe just having a small spoonful on your plate. So it doesn't always have to look like half of your plate as one complete vegetable. You can kind of have some pickings throughout the meal time or the appetizer time. Our next step is to find our protein. What protein options are available to you? Sometimes there's more than one, sometimes there's only one, but that protein is really complex. When we break it down metabolically, right, it's going to slow down the carbohydrate digestion, which releases the sugar slower into our bloodstream. So that's going to really benefit our blood sugar overall long term. And the goal is to fill it probably about a fourth or more of the plate with protein. It can look about, anywhere from 4 ounces to 6 ounces at a time. And it really can be any kind of protein. It can be a plant-based protein, it can be a meat-based protein, whatever your holiday meal has. It's still going to do the same thing and change the way we break down carbohydrates. Our final, or one of our next steps is, where are the fats? Fats get a bad rep, in my opinion. They do a lot of really good things for our body. Sometimes they're associated with higher calorie contents, but fats are good. Of course, certain types of fats we want to prioritize more, like our olive oil, avocado, fish, nuts, seeds. But most holidays meals don't necessarily have all these great unsaturated fat options. Usually it might be cheese, butter, gravy, and those still have a place too. They're a great option if we want to work on slowing down the digestion of our food, because they're also very complex, right? It takes a while for our body to break them down. So that's going to help slow down the digestion of the carbohydrate too. It's also great because they help us absorb certain vitamins and minerals in certain foods like vegetables. So for instance, if you had a salad with some salad dressing on it, that salad dressing is actually filled with fat, so it's going to help absorb those fat-soluble vitamins that are located in the vegetables. So it has a benefit more than one. So usually about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons is recommended. Sometimes it can be a little hard to measure if it's mixed in like mashed potatoes or it's mixed in a gravy. It might be hard to measure the certain amount that you might have, but making sure you do have some fat included on that meal can keep you satisfied and full a little bit longer too. And finally, we want to choose our carbohydrate. So in my opinion, this is the most exciting part of the meal, and what I look forward to all year round. So what do you normally not get to have on a regular occasion? That is the first tip in kind of picking your carbohydrates. Usually, if I'm thinking of my family dinner, it has a lot of carb options. So what am I most excited for? For me, I could take the stuffing, I could leave the mashed potatoes because I could have those anytime. So I want to prioritize what my favorite option of carbohydrate is going to be. You can choose more than one, but we want to focus on the portion size, trying to keep them to a fourth of the plate or a fourth to a half a cup at one time, just so we don't overload the system with too much carbohydrate at once, depending on the carbohydrate you have. And of course, if you have any high fiber items, right, maybe you're having rice, you're having like a whole grain rice or a whole grain roll or something like that, that high fiber item is also going to be helpful in balancing your blood sugars as well because of the extra fiber working to slow down digestion.
So Caroline, I have a quick question. Sorry
Sure.
to stop you there. But I know, right, like you said, especially around Thanksgiving or Christmas, we have these huge meals with many options. I have a friend whose husband calls it, Carb Fest,
Yeah.
because of all the carbs that we have. So, and I think I heard you say you could pick more than one. So if you want to taste everything, is it okay to still identify, right, that part of your plate, that quarter of your plate, and then maybe put, a small spoonful of, right, the stuffing, the mashed potatoes,
Yeah.
the sweet potatoes, or whatever it is that you want, so that you do get to, you don't like feel like you're missing out on something or you're being cheated out of something, because sometimes by the time we eat everything, we're very full anyway. So having that bite or two might be enough to kind of satisfy you. Or if there's one that you like best, maybe a little bit more of that one and just, again, a bite or two of the others. So is that also an option?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could, there could be a couple different carb choices. And even if it goes a little above and beyond the fourth of the plate, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But even if it goes a little bit above a fourth of that plate, you're probably still okay, right? We've got different sources of carbs, coming together. If you have a baked potato, right, you're getting more fiber, so you could have a little extra of something else. So you could play with kind of what your favorites are and get a taste of everything if you really wanted to, just as long as you are mindful of the whole portion size overall of all of your carb sources. So that's where identifying the specific food groups that each food is located in is going to help have a better idea of how each food's going to affect your blood sugar too. Good question. So this kind of plays hand in hand with that of what if I want a dessert and a starch at my meal, right? A lot of the times we move right into dessert after a meal or pretty close after a meal. And my main recommendation is noting that it is the holidays. So it's a very minuscule part of your year. And usually it's just a 1 to 2 day celebration. So we want to make sure you give yourself permission to eat and enjoy, especially when you're around family and friends, because it is a limited time thing. One blood sugar does not define your entire journey with diabetes. We do want to be mindful of it, but restriction usually results in overeating later on. For instance, if you were to maybe not have a piece of pie and just tell yourself all day, I gotta avoid the pie, I gotta avoid the pie, you might be in front of the fridge at 10 p.m. eating a couple slices of pie just because you've been craving it all day. So we want to make sure that you give yourself permission without restriction, just so that you can have a taste of these things, right? Enjoy being mindful of how these foods affect your sugar, of course, because we know pie is going to raise your blood sugar, a baked potato might raise your blood sugar, but doing so mindfully of having a slice here and there. We know we've got protein, fats, and fiber in our plate to help slow down digestion. But you also may want to decrease the starch portion on your plate if that dessert's more important to you. I would take pie all day long over certain carbohydrates. So sometimes the dessert might rank higher on your list of priorities for the holiday season, and that's okay. Just making sure that you mindful of the portion size, right? You are taking into account the other sources of carb at your meal. But you most definitely can have a dessert with your meal or shortly after, because we are working on a balanced plate. We are working on making sure we have a lot of different components to help slow down our blood sugar. But we do have some troubleshooting things we can work on too, because we know blood sugars tend to be a little higher in the holiday season. Could be multitude of reasons, right? High stress, lack of sleep, dehydration, not moving as much, right? A lot of things play into our blood sugar management. But this is a celebration. So like I said, we want to avoid the restriction mindset the best we can, because the more we restrict, the more we can lean on that binge behavior where we end up going for more than we actually need because we've restricted ourselves in the first place. I always compare it to being like a little kid when you're told you can't have something or do something, you want to do it more. That's very true in most of us. So having that restriction-free mindset can help us actually balance our blood sugars a little bit more. If you experience a blood sugar spike following your meal, we want to make sure that you do take your medication as ordered. Take about a 10 to 15 minute walk after a meal to help reduce blood sugars. So even great to kind of, if you're feeling overly full, to kind of do some walking to get a little bit more comfortable. But we do notice there was a great study done, like a 5 to 10 minute walk after a meal actually helps to reduce your blood sugar overall pretty substantially. So doing that on a regular basis is great. But after a holiday, it could do really great things and just naturally kind of reducing that blood sugar, because you're taking that sugar that you've that's sitting in your bloodstream, putting it into your muscle and using it as energy. So we want to also note that you can stay hydrated during the day, right? We want to make sure you dilute your bloodstream the best you can, hydrating with water, usually sugar absent beverages if possible, just to make sure that those two things, the walking and the water consumption, can help bring down those blood sugars if they tend to be a little bit higher. And always, always, always check your blood sugar regularly, especially if you're having any alcohol during this holiday season and you're taking certain medications. It can result in a hypoglycemia effect. So we want to make sure that you're responsibly consuming any alcohol, taking blood sugar regularly, especially if we're eating out of the normal. And of course, if your ranges are dipping too low or going way too high, check in with your medical provider as soon as possible. So to the fun part of our presentation, we're actually going to build a plate together just to get a little more experience or a visual representation on how we're going to balance our blood sugars using some common foods. These foods might not look like foods you might have at your holiday, and that's perfectly okay, but pay attention to the carb, fat, protein, vegetable options. And I'm going to use my two lovely assistants here to help me walk through building a plate. Donna, if you want to take the first plate, what food would you like to start with as we build our plate?
All right. Well, based on what we learned, we should start with our veggies. So let's go with the green beans.
Awesome. Good choice. So now we have vegetables. What food can we add to ensure that we keep that blood sugar balanced through the meal?
All right. So then we want to look at our protein. So we can add our protein to the plate.
Okay.
I'll take the turkey.
Okay. Perfect. Love it. All right, so now we have our protein to ensure slower digestion. What food could help us slow down digestion even further?
Okay, so then we should look at our fat options, right? So here I would say the gravy.
I think that is our only fat option. So yes, gravy. Perfect. Now that we have that gravy portion, what is going to be our next item on the plate?
Okay. Let's see. So I guess since it's the holiday, we'll go with the pumpkin pie. I want to save that over there. But then also the half a potato. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Reading your mind. I love it. So we've got a dessert and we've got a starch option, which that was a great segue for your question earlier. You can have both, right? You can have two options of carbohydrates to help balance out our blood sugars because we also have fat, we have vegetables, we have protein. So all of them work together to help create a nice balanced plate, which is going to be great. And it will even balance it better than if you ate the pie by itself, right? Because you've got all these things working for your benefit in digestion. So we have one plate. Why not go for round two? So Sean, if you want to walk me through this plate and what you feel like you would like to start with when building your plate for the night.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like Donna actually stole my green beans in the first round. So let's start with salad here to mix it up.
Perfect.
Mhm.
All right, now that we've got a good salad for digestion and blood sugar control, what is going to be your next choice?
Yep. So now we have a protein next to help slow digestion. I'm hoping to get at least one, if not two, workouts in that morning. So I'll be in a food coma. So is it possible to get multiple proteins during that meal?
Yes, I think you absolutely can get multiple proteins at that meal because the protein's not really going to affect your blood sugar. Usually with a good source of protein, not going above and beyond like crazy amounts of protein, you're going to help balance your blood sugar even more. The more protein to carb ratio you have, a usually better blood sugar control you do have. So good options. Good
It helps
options.
slow that digestion so I can sit and watch football uninterrupted. Get back up and add the ham after. I like it.
And it's going to keep you fuller longer too, because it's going to take way longer for your body to take time breaking that down. So you might even realize you stay fuller longer, end up snacking less, which in turn helps your blood sugar overall too. Now
Even
what?
when I'm sleeping too. Avoid some conversation.
I mean, turkey does have tryptophan, so if you're feeling tired after the turkey, it's because of those amino acids in there. Now any food you would add next on the plate?
You mentioned the fat source to help slow down that blood sugar. So with the salad, I am brave, but I'm not going to have a dry salad. So we're going to add a little bit of dressing there.
Perfect. So that's even going to be even more beneficial because you're going to absorb all of those vitamins and minerals from the salad because you're adding the dressing like we talked about earlier. So nice choice. So now what
Yep.
about your next option? We've got some of the carbs remaining on this.
Yeah, I'm going to follow Donna taking that left half of the potato. I don't know where the right half went, but we're also going to do a little bit of stuffing too, not too much, but
Perfect. Okay, so we've got two starches here. And it looks like our plate is looking pretty full, but is there anything else you might want to add? Do you have any questions on how to keep on building your plate?
so I am a growing boy, so I might still be hungry. So adding something to the plate dessert wise, I do see, I'm not a big pie guy, but I do see up there snack wise, maybe looks like a homemade brownie. I don't know what the recipe exactly is, but I'm sure it tastes just as great. So I might want to add that. Like you said, we're not gonna deny ourselves and then end up binging later. So if I add one of those desserts, maybe.
That is a great that's a great point because you see, we want to manage your blood sugar, right? And we don't want to restrict you in any sort. So we see we already have two carb choices here, right? Your blood sugar might spike a little bit from this. So maybe having the dessert with this meal in particular, right, at all at one time might be too much for your blood sugar to handle. Of course, you could always test it out and take your blood sugar and see kind of what the levels are, because one bad blood sugar does not mean that you're, messing up your entire diabetes journey. But there might be another option at the plate that could fill you for a little bit longer and then allow you to kind of enjoy a dessert later on once the blood sugar is kind of stabilized.
Well, I think that might be like a biscuit maybe in the middle. Is that what that is?
Right, it's actually a full-size potato.
Oh, it's a whole potato. I see. Looks like a russet. I guess. Should I snag the green beans from earlier? I
I
mean,
know they're not exciting. They don't look exciting, but the green beans would actually balance your blood sugar the best. Now, if you did want that brownie at the mealtime, right? Everybody's blood sugar reacts differently to different types of foods, different amounts of foods, right? Not one person reacts the same to every single food. So you might notice your blood sugar is starting out at a really good range before the meal. And you say, you know what, I've got enough, or maybe my carb choices are a little smaller than they look on this plate. And you might be able to snag a brownie or even have a little extra of the potato, and your blood sugar would be completely fine or within a regular range a couple hours after a meal. If you were to wait, you have this meal here and you were to wait to have a brownie later, I'd usually wait an hour or two after dinner, check your blood sugar, make sure it's going down, maybe take a walk. Then you could absolutely have some brownie. Maybe you actually have it with another protein source or some extra fiber or some little bit of leftover salad or something that you wanted to keep you full, and then pair that brownie with it. And you'd have a perfectly great time enjoying a dessert while also managing your blood sugar. So just because you had 2 starches at a dinner does not mean you don't get to have dessert. You most certainly do. It's more of, we want to make sure your blood sugars are in a good range first. We want to balance it out the best we can, and also balance the portion size the best we can too.
So overall, Caroline, I know on my plate, like I had the pie right there, but from the overall perspective, and I know a lot of people eat earlier on like Thanksgiving or something, right? Like they eat at 2 or 3 versus the 5, 6, or 7, probably because they're having more food, right? Or more options and more food at one time. So as a general rule, is it better to take that 5 or 10 minute walk that you said, and then maybe do some of the cleanup and then have the dessert, whatever it may be, later while you're watching the football game with Sean?
Yes, that's a beautiful idea because you're moving your body, right? So you're taking up any of those sugars from the meal, right? That might be lingering, and you're helping to use that as energy. So if you even just stayed moving around the house, sometimes it's not nice outside on Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holiday you're celebrating, so you can't go take a long walk. But moving around the house, like doing the dishes or staying active or moving about, grabbing things, right? That's going to help balance your blood sugar even more than if you were just to kind of sit down like we normally, you said getting tired after the turkey, right? You want to lay down, try to stay standing for a little bit longer, because then you could enjoy a dessert, which would have a better benefit on your blood sugar than if you would have just kind of laid down and just let the sugar kind of flow into your bloodstream. You can also stay hydrated, right? So making sure you're drinking some good water. The more hydrated you are, the more diluted your bloodstream is. So you don't have that increase, as high of an increase of blood sugar as you would if you were hydrating. So that's a good point. Stay moving. You could absolutely enjoy a dessert afterward too. Any other questions about our plates?
I don't have any questions.
Awesome.
I just know, I know a lot of people, whenever they make food around the holidays, there usually are tons of leftovers. So maybe just how should you space that out? Are you gonna go back and like attack the same plate the next day, or do you give it like buffer day and then go back to the stuffing? Or
That's a great point. Because I mentioned that holiday can last a day or two. If it goes more than a day or two, we want to make sure we're monitoring our blood sugar pretty well, because we don't want a full week of just blood sugar up and down. But a leftover day, perfectly fine. I'd say you could go for the same foods, like your favorite foods. Don't let food go to waste, right? I wouldn't want to waste any food, but go with the same tactics that we would use building our holiday plate, right? Making sure you've got that balance of fiber, protein, fats, and a little bit of carb there too. That way you've got a better control of your blood sugar than if you were to just kind of go in, scoop a bunch of things and not be mindful of the portion size at one singular time. But you can even extend it, into the next day. But as you move through each day, getting closer back to your regular routine as much as possible.
I have to stay thankful for as long as possible. So
You
I like it. I like
have to go to the gym 3 times the next day, Sean.
Yeah, well, I might do the turkey trot at 5 a.m. Thanksgiving morning. So
And do
whenever.
you
Yeah.
know when you do a run like that in the morning, right? Like, or any kind of physical activity can actually lower your blood sugar. I think it's like 6 to 12 hours afterward. So even if you don't get to take a small walk after a meal, if you've went and walked the turkey trot or did a nice exercise routine in the morning, right, that can have beneficial effects on your blood sugar even at nighttime. So staying active during the holiday season, as hard as it is with the routine, if you have family coming out of town or just a weird different schedule, that can really benefit your blood sugar as well. But as I like to say, holidays, they take up a very, very small percentage of your journey, of your year. I think it was 1 to 2% of all the holidays in the year. So I often hear a lot of patients stressing, oh, well, the holidays are coming up. What am I going to do? I usually say stress less, because stress increases our blood sugar too. So if we go into with an open mind, right, all foods are available to us. We can be excited about it. We don't have to fear any type of food. We can usually have better blood sugar results overall. This time's meant to spend with friends and family. And we know that when we have that restriction mindset, we can also impact our mental health too. Because if you've got friends and family enjoying foods that you say you can't have, right, that can take a mental effect as well and just make you not enjoy holiday season as much. So we want to make sure that you do enjoy the season. It's a short time frame, and there's always time to get back into a regular routine after, or find small little things of your regular routine to add back in, like a walk or some hydration, or making sure that you eat your vegetables, right? Those are small things we can add from our regular routine to help make the holidays a little more normalized for us when controlling our sugars. So we want to make sure you do have a game plan, that you build your plate before you even build your plate. You build it kind of mentally. I always end up having eyes bigger than my stomach every single time, and I end up feeling overly full. So each year I try to get better at making the mindful choices of, okay, what's most important here? What's going to fill me up the longest? What are my favorites? And going through that mindfulness pattern and the steps that we walked through can really help you feel more prepared, and less kind of out of control when you're seeing all these different foods in front of you. But it's also important to keep in mind your sugars. So monitoring them often, moving regularly, staying hydrated, and especially eating on a regular schedule. I know it can be practiced to kind of skip all the meals the day before or even the morning of, while you're prepping food, but that can actually harm your blood sugar even more. We want to make sure that you have regular intake, a small little breakfast or a snack, because if you starve yourself all day, you're going to go crazy at dinner time and then maybe overdo the portion size. So you eating all day will actually help you have a better blood sugar overall. We don't want your liver releasing extra sugars into your bloodstream for a fasting period. So allowing yourself to have a regular scheduled meal as much as possible through your holiday season is going to help benefit your blood sugars. And as I said multiple times, one elevated blood sugar does not dictate your journey with diabetes, but we do want to be mindful of our numbers over the holiday season to ensure our safety and well-being. So if anything is out of the ordinary for you, or you're concerned about a certain blood sugar, reach out to your medical provider as often as you need to, just to get some guidance on that too. But that concludes our holiday edition of building our plate. Any kind of questions, any other kind of concerns when you're walking into the holidays in a couple weeks?
I know there's so many things to think about, and I try to pull in, I think, all of the things that we've talked about throughout the year. So making sure that our patients do realize, and this is one way to let you know that we do have lots of resources. So all of these webinars that we do are recorded. They're on our YouTube channel. They're on our wellness page. We have other resources as well. So Caroline talked a lot about being mindful, and we do have another series on mindful eating if you're not quite sure everything that is entailed with that. We have a lot of resources, quick tip videos. We have our full webinar series where we bring in lots of specialists, the cardiology, the podiatrist, the ophthalmologist. So it is important. Endocrinology, of course, Dr. Hundle, our program director. So I guess in summary, want to say that there are lots of resources that we try to provide to you throughout the entire year. We have a lot of handouts, shopping tips. We even have a series we did with ShopRite that takes you through a journey of all departments in the supermarket. So those things I think can help lead you here right through the holidays. It's not just one plate or one meal, as Caroline said. This does, we have lots of different holidays coming up over the next month or two. And so as we start baking the cookies or doing all of those other things, it's just being mindful of that and maybe looking for options that may have be a little bit healthier. So I know we've talked about some of those things, and Caroline also posts on our Facebook page meal tips, which can help you, which includes not only meals, but I think you've put some of the other things out there, right, Caroline? Some of the
And we have like
desserts.
a Pinterest board available to you as well. That's giving new and kind of exciting recipes to try, while also staying mindful of including some of the foods we talked about, some of those high fiber items, fruits, veggies, those types of things. And if you're still struggling or you need extra support, we do have a support group, usually held on the fourth Wednesday of the month. This one in November is moved a little bit later, I believe, because of Thanksgiving, the way
Right. It was going to be on the 22nd.
the
So we
Wednesday
moved
before.
Yes. So we moved it to the week after so we can help you right on the 29th.
Yep. Yep. 6 p.m.
So yes, and if you're not sure, please, you can go out to our webpage again and find that information. So something real quick, it made me think about when Sean was talking about the brownie. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but Caroline makes the best black bean brownies, and so they really are very flavorful. I'll tell you, I was a little hesitant, but if you're looking for a more healthy version of a brownie. And I think that's out there on the board.
It's on the Pinterest board, yeah. It's actually a really easy recipe, really fun. And in comparison, the office ate more of the black bean brownies than the regular brownies. So it is worth a shot to try some new things. You don't have to healthify everything on your holiday list, but if you wanted to try some new and exciting kind of healthier options to balance your blood sugar better, there's plenty of resources, especially on our Pinterest page or on our Facebook page as well to get you started.
All right. Well, thank you both. Sean, did you have anything else to add, or did you want to talk a little bit about next week's live event?
So to add right there, hopefully we get to experience those brownies at the company potluck we have coming up. Pressure, but a little bit of pressure. And then, yeah, just with our live sessions coming up, we do have a lot of the political series continuing on into the beginning of December. We do have a 2-week break now because Kamal is traveling in Turkey. But coming back in December, we have some political sessions for the 2 p.m. And then we also will be resuming the Bariatric Friday. And I believe we're trying to get one of those Bariatric Fridays actually on the 17th, which will coincide with the topics we talked about here with the holiday plate eating edition. So Dr. Yurgao and Kamal hopefully should be able to get you on November the 17th. And then into the new year, we'll continue on with those political series with the 2024 elections.
And we continue with our diabetes session. Again, typically it is the second Friday of most months. Occasionally we have to move things around a little bit, but that's the general schedule that we like to adhere to. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our future events.